So it's so good to see you all gathered together to welcome a new year. Some of you I haven't seen in a long time. Others I haven't seen since Yom Kippur ended last year. Many of you I see every week. Some have been coming to the synagogue your entire lives, while others are here for the very first time, having just moved to this city. I also see many of our college students who have come back home for the holidays. To everyone I say, it's so great to see you all right where you belong. I look around and I also notice that some of the seats that had been occupied for many, many years are empty this year for the very first time. I'm sure you feel the presence of your loved ones who are no longer among the living, and I pray that the memories may be a source of blessing to us all. When I was thinking about how to open the first of many messages that we will share over the next 10 days, I realized that since Rosh Hashanah is the symbolic anniversary of the creation of the world, it could be a good idea to share 4 anniversaries that I have celebrated over the last 90 days that have helped me work on myself and which I hope can help you as well. So let's start. 4 well-respected Los Angeles rabbis were close friends. One Yom Kippur, they decided to help each other through the process of teshuvah by confessing to each other something they struggled with and planned to work during the following year. So the first shared that he has a gambling problem. Every summer, he tells the congregation he's going to Hartman Institute in Israel to study, but instead, he flies to Las Vegas to play the video poker machines. The other rabbis were moved by his confession and agreed they would help encourage him to curb his gambling. A second rabbi began to confess, I am single and I have a problem staying focused when I'm in front of a female congregant. So he was trying to bring it under control, but it was a struggle. So the other rabbis commended him for sharing and encouraged him, you will do fine. The third rabbi begins to confess he has a problem with alcohol. Every Shabbat morning for years, he enjoys some schnapps before services. He even volunteered to be in charge of the Kiddush club so as to justify drinking after services. But on several Shabbatot, he embarrassingly left the synagogue drunk. So the rabbis again swore to help him whatever way they could to see that the colleague broke his bad habit. Then it was the fourth rabbi's turn to confess, but there was only silence. So one of the rabbis turned to him and said, Gerald, we have confessed our sins. Don't be ashamed. Share with us. So the fourth rabbi rose to his feet and turned to the other rabbis and said, I have a big problem with gossip, and I can't wait to get out of here. So I don't have a problem with gossip. So the next couple of minutes won't include a confession, but rather some reflection, which I hope you find meaningful. Last month, my family celebrated 20 years since we first moved to Miami. The first anniversary I want to share with you. On the day that marked our 20th anniversary here, I sat with my wife and we reflected on what we lost and what we gained by leaving Argentina and immigrating to the USA. And we agree. During these 20 years, every member of our family found his or her place in this amazing country. We live in an empowering democracy in the country considered Israel's biggest ally, where I don't need to justify my multiple loyalties because everyone has them. We gain financial stability, access to the best education for our kids, and the pride of being part of a free society with the most influential Jewish diaspora in the world. And together, we brought the Torah into the 21st century. What have we lost? In our case, a daily relationship with our family. For someone like me, who from the pulpit so often tries to remind all of us the value of family, it has been painful to separate myself from my own, to receive the phone call that mom died and not being in person at that moment, to see how my in-laws have grown older, but we cannot be there as much as we want to be or as much as they need us to be. To notice how my kids have lost their opportunity to have the sacred, continuous relationship that come with having grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins close by. And reflecting on these 20 years of losses and gains, of successes and failures, and of deep ties with so many of you, I'm left with 4 teachings that I think are actually 4 truth. Here are 4 hard-earned truths of my first 20 years in Miami. The first one is that you can't have it all. Nobody, with no exceptions, nobody has it all. We all met people that seem powerful and successful, people we think have it wealth and fame and magnetism. They have their homes, the cash, and the svelte bodies we all dream about. But everyone has the full share of tzures. As the old Yiddish proverb puts it, if we each put our bag of troubles under a tree, most of us will still choose to take the one we know. Nobody has it all. The second lesson that I have learned over the last 20 years is that no one knows it all. There is a bracha we are supposed to say when meeting a wise man, like a scientist, a philosopher, an intellectual. Baruch ata Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, shechalak michochmato libasar v'dam. Blessed are you, God, who has given a chelek, only a piece of wisdom to human beings. The word chelek, a portion, his wisdom to human beings are praised, because they possess some of God's wisdom, and they are to listen to each other and learn from one another, because no one knows everything. You know, it's tough to be in a relationship with someone who knows everything. History is full of loving relationship that ended because one partner or one parent was so sure that they were always right that the relationship could not endure. Nobody has it all, nobody knows it all. The third lesson that I would love to share is that nobody can do it all, at least not alone. The world we live in is so made that, like it or not, we are interconnected and interdependent, and therefore whatever achievement we earn can only be so with the help of others. I think I'm a fairly good preacher, but to give this sermon today, someone wrote books from which I learned most of my insight. Someone else created a virtual library where I read these books, and somebody back in first grade taught me how to read. If they hadn't, I wouldn't be standing here. Nobody has it all, nobody knows it all, and nobody, with no exception, nobody can do it all. There is one more truth that I want to share with you. And this too took a good bit of living before I could understand. When we are young, we often see things black or white, good or bad. But great truth in life are not either or, but often both. So the fourth lesson I want to share with you today is you cannot have it all, but you can have something. You cannot know it all, but you can know something. And you cannot do it all, but you can do something. And therefore, that which you can have, you should strive to have. That which you can know, you should strive to know. And that which you can do, you should strive to do. My 20 years in this country taught me that we should not let the fact that you cannot do it all, know it all, or have it all be an excuse for not doing, knowing, or having what you can. Question: what do you want to have, to do, or to know during this year? Can you commit in this sacred space and time to work to achieve it? The second recent anniversary I want to share is that on May 25th of this year, Gisela and I celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. Most of you know by now that we think, a private couple. It's difficult to find pictures of us together on social media. And what we have to say to each other, we say it in private. I'm not always very nice. But I owe so much to my wife. She accepted the challenge of marrying a rabbi with 3 small children, came to Miami and left loved ones behind, and created a sacred space where 5 siblings love and take care one of another. The rabbi's family benefits from being the rabbi's family, but also pays a price for being the rabbi's family. Correct, Feyen? Where are you? This anniversary invites me to think about the nature of our relationships. Rosh Hashanah is when we are also judged on the quality of the relationship with Mainten. To have a healthy family relationship, we need to learn how to find victories without winning arguments. Sometimes there are things that are more important than being right. Not everything is worth arguing or fighting about. The older I get, the more I'm learning when it's actually important to argue for my perspective and when I can live with someone else having the last word. When you reach a certain age, you start to measure your success in life by how many of the people you want to love you actually love you. That's the ultimate test of how you have lived your life. The reality about love is that you can't buy it. You can buy sex. You can buy honorary doctorates. But the only way to be loved is to be lovable. The more you give love away, the more you get. Rabbi Harold Kushner tells the following story. I was sitting on a beach one summer day watching 2 children playing in the sand. They were building an elaborate sand castle by the water's edge. Just when they had nearly finished their project, a big wave came along and knocked it all down. I expected the children to burst in tears, devastated by what happened to the hard work. But instead, they ran up the shore, laughing and holding hands, and sat down to build another castle. They taught me an important lesson, says Rabbi Kushner. All the things in our lives, all the complicated structures we spend so much time and energy creating are built on sand. Only our relationships to each other endure. Sooner or later, the wave will come and knock down what we worked so hard to build. When that happens, only the person who has somebody's hand to hold will be able to laugh. Invest in relationships that are dear to you. Question: do you love enough? Do you love in the right way? Do you love the right person? Do you receive love back? Can you love better? My 3rd anniversary, 3 weeks ago, marked my 35th anniversary as a rabbi. Several experiences throughout my life led me to choose this vocation. Watching my parents perform Jewish theater all over the world and joining them on those tours when I was a kid. The post-show meals with some of my parents' acquaintances and friends, most of them Holocaust survivors in the 30s and 40s, I remember listening to the dialogues in awe at how these survivors recreated their lives and rebuilt families. I knew I was going to dedicate myself to the Jewish people. I didn't know in which capacity. But I remember the day I decided to become a rabbi, as if it was today. I used to attend Friday night services every week with my dad at a synagogue on the street Libertad in Buenos Aires. The Friday after my father's death, I didn't want to go back to that synagogue alone without him and meet people with my new status, an orphan. I chose to go to a different synagogue in a different neighborhood. The name of the synagogue, Comunidad Betel. That was the first time I entered a conservative synagogue. Families sitting all together, music playing, 1,200 people for a Friday night service. This was Friday, October 24, 1980. When it was time for Kaddish, I stood. When services ended, the custom was for the rabbi to stand at the door and greet congregants one by one. When it was my turn, he asked me, "What are you saying Kaddish for?" "For my father," I answered. He put his hand on my shoulders and told me, "Come over to my house for dinner." And I remember leaving Rabbi Marshall Meyer's Zichrono Livracha house 3 hours later saying, "I want to be like him." The following Monday, I called his office and signed up for rabbinical school. Once ordained, he invited me to be the rabbi of that synagogue where I served for 11 years before moving to Miami. What are my most important takeaways from my 35 years of serving as a rabbi? In order not to bore you, I'm going to choose a psychological, a theological, and ideological example. 1. The greatest gift you can offer another human being is the gift of listening. Listen to them deeply and fully. Too often we converse with others with no thought beyond our own response. We all long to be heard and understood, especially with all the distractions of technology. It's rare to open our hearts to someone and feel that they are fully engaged. You can be that person for someone. Question: are you a good listener? What do you feel? Who do you feel listens to you and really understands you? Second, faith is a gift. It comes to us only through living. Our dependency on things outside of us, our fragility, our ignorance, no matter how much we think we know, this down on us only after we get knocked around by life. We acquire humility only after being humbled. Only after we have personally experienced unfairness do we learn to love justice. Only after we or a loved one have fallen ill do we fully appreciate health. Only after we have failed can we cherish those moments of life when we truly succeed. This is when we develop that thing called faith. Not a recitation of religious doctrine, but a deeper devotion that seeks to affirm life despite its hardships, injustice, and finality. We cannot live without faith. Life is too complicated, too uncertain, too unpredictable, too harsh to not believe. Every time you step outside the door, you take a leap of faith, believing those around you are not ill-intended. Faith is synonymous with life. We cannot live without faith. The only question is what we choose to believe. Will we believe in the hopelessness of human creature? Will we believe that we can make a difference? 3. Having spoken of faith, let me tell you a couple of things I don't believe. Have you heard the phrase, "everything happens for a reason"? No, actually, it doesn't. Everything happens for a reason. Just ask Kate Bauer, a professor of history of Christianity at Duke University. In 2015, out of nowhere, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at age 35. And she wrote a best-selling book about her experience and tells of 10 things people shouldn't say to a person experiencing such a crisis. And one is, everything happens for a reason. In fact, she titled her book, "Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I Have Heard." You want proof that this is right? Take this one. 3 days after the US bombing of Hiroshima, our planes took off to drop another atom bomb on another city. You know what the name of that city was? Kuroko. That's right, not Nagasaki. Kuroko. Because of heavy clouds over Kuroko, a split-second decision was made to bomb Nagasaki instead. 50,000 people lost their lives in Nagasaki, while 50,000 people in Kuroko were saved. For a reason? Everything happens for a reason. You will never convince me of that. Will they, you, Rabbi Farber? Will they convince you that everything happens for a reason? No matter how good you may be, you cannot guarantee in what our tradition refers to as keheref ayin, the blink of an eye, that in a minute, your whole world won't change and you won't find yourself wondering how it happens so fast. Some will say everything happens for a reason, and we will tell you that's life. Suffering, I have discovered, is not a competitive sport. Chris Cleave wrote, I'm telling you, trouble is like the ocean. It covers 2/3 of the world. Everyone has tsures, and a person who is hurting does not need to hear mine in the midst of trying to tell me his. Just listen. Another phrase I don't believe is God doesn't give you more than you can handle. If am I drowning in pain and sorrow, is this God's doing? You will never hear this from this bima. Another lesson. These high holidays not only present us with the beauty of being able to be physically together, but they also present us with a very big challenge. For almost 2 years, many of us lived confined at home. We live life through Zoom and open Zoom to listen to people who think exactly like we do. Do we really believe that we grow by sharing time only with people who think like us? It's not coincidence that Americans are more divided and polarized than ever. If we Zoom and read and listen mostly to ourselves for 2 years, how and when can we see the other? People distrust the news and the political parties and the politicians and the neighbors. How can you be a loyal Jew if you are a Democrat? How can you be a loyal Jew if you are a Republican? Our tradition gives us an opportunity to rebuild trust. I have a question. Show me. Who has a mezuzah in their homes? Pretty good. Why is the mezuzah affixed to the wall, not straight, but slanted? Rashi, the 11th century French commentator, determined that the mezuzah needs to be affixed vertically. Rabbi Tam, Rashi's grandson, said that the mezuzah should be affixed horizontally. 150 years later, Rabbi Yaakov ben Asher suggests that to show respect for both great rabbis, we need to split the difference and point the mezuzah into the room. That's why the mezuzah is affixed at the slant, as a symbol of compromise. The message is clear. A Jewish home, a Jewish family, expecting to dwell among love, loyalty, and generosity, needs to accept compromise as a main value and teach it to their children and grandchildren. The poet Yehuda Amichai is recognized as one of Israel's finest poets. His poems, written in Hebrew, have been translated to 40 languages. In one of them he says, Min hamakom shebo anu tzodkim lo yitzmechu leolam prachim. From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. Sure, a place where we don't allow for dissent, where dialogue does not bring new perspective, is a dry place. Post-COVID is not only about leaving the house. It's also about recovering trust, and this is the place and the time to start. This place, this diverse place, BTBRC, Betorah Beni Rock Campus, can be a microcosm for this ideal. Shortly I was ordained as a rabbi. The Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires was bombed. I was in the building an hour before it exploded. I lost my friend Marcela, who was the Cultural Affairs Secretary. We lost Mirta, who was the Ambassador Secretary, and my brother-in-law sister. Too many funerals. Fighting for justice from my bima and in front of the Supreme Court were daily tasks for me and for many colleagues. This anti-Jewish, anti-Israel attack shaped me and my rabbinate. As I am writing these lines, I read about a reporter in Berlin who asked Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, if he was ready to apologize for the killing of 11 Israeli athletes during the Olympic Games in Munich exactly 50 years ago. Instead, he accused Israel of having committed 50 Holocaust in Palestinian areas since 1947. and he declared Israel is an apartheid state performing genocide to Palestinians. So 30 years later, it's painful and disappointing when in the USA we have to defend and explain the right of Israel to exist as it is irrationally attacked by the growing extreme right and extreme left. Do you know that there are more Arabs living in Israel now than in 1948 when Israel was created? That the Arab population hasn't been cleansed, it has expanded? Apartheid? Israel sent Mossad agents to Ethiopia to rescue thousands of black Falasha Jews, resettling them in Israel, an operation described as, quote, for the first time in history, thousands of black people are being brought into a country not in chains, but in dignity, not as slaves, but as citizens. An apartheid country, 17 of Israeli doctors, 25% of the nurses, and over 40% of pharmacists are non-Jewish Israeli Arabs. Last June, here in the US, we celebrated the first Muslim becoming a justice on the federal court. There has been a Muslim sitting on the Israel Supreme Court for the last 20 years. Go and explain that Israel's government included a fierce feminist, a gay man, a black Ethiopian, a radical leftist, a former Russian bouncer, a right-wing settler, and a Muslim Arab party. Don't get me wrong. We are not a nation of saints. Israel makes mistakes. Do I know and heard that so many Palestinians live in poverty? Yes. I would love them to choose better leaders and sign a peace agreement and have a state and take care of their own destiny. Not all of Israel's decisions are acts of genius. Israel is worthy of criticism. I'm not talking about fair criticism. Israel is held to a standard unlike any other country in the world. I grew up with Paul Newman playing Ari Ben Canaan in Exodus, with the world thrilled that Israel came out victorious in the Six-Day War after being attacked and almost experiencing a second Shoah. We were amazed at Entebbe operation, saving so many held hostage. And despite people today growing up in the shadow of a war in Lebanon, an intifada, and continuing act of terrorism, we are surrounded by a society that, especially on college campuses, in the name of intersectionality and shelter by social justice organizations that have important and worthwhile causes, are perpetrating dangerous anti-Semitism and hatred for Israel. And when Israel is criticized harshly by our own, it's especially painful. There's always been a reason not to like us, either because we were accused of being capitalist or because we were accused of being communist, because we were too liberal or because we were too racist, because we were too pushy and because we were too ghettoicides, because we were the chosen people or because we were an inferior race. I know that in some synagogues, some rabbis will speak from the bima against Israel, so I want to make it very clear. I am a Zionist. Do you want to hear it again? I am a Zionist. Just the idea that the rabbi says I am a Zionist and gets applauded, it was going on today in United States of America. My grandma is one of the 6 million. When we have a Passover Seder, we have no family in the table because the Nazis killed all my family. And when I say I am a Zionist, I still need to justify myself in so many places. So I have been in the rabbinate for 35 years. And listen carefully. I don't have a lot of talents. And there is not a lot I know how to do. I don't know how to fix things. I don't know how to invest money. But I do know how to do the rabbi thing. You forgave me all my linguistic mistakes, including those I'm saying now. And I never take for granted that kindness. Rabbi Bunem, the Hasidic master, said, only a fool goes into the tallest building, climbs up to the roof, stands on the top and believes he's very tall. Betorah is tall because of Rabbi Lifshitz of blessed memory. Betorah is tall because of Rabbi Farber, Ivaldel Lechaim Arukim, and now taller with the addition of Cantor Marcos. By the way, we welcome you, Cantor. Betorah is tall for every professional that serves and serves with passion, for every member of the board of directors, and because of you, I feel so tall. Why, I'm not. But I feel so tall because of all of you. You know, a priest celebrates his 35th anniversary as the head of a small congregation in a small village in rural America. The mayor was supposed to deliver a speech at the beginning, but as always, he was late to show up. So the priest started with his speech. I know how disturbed I was 25 years ago when I came to this village. The first man to confess, who I will not call out by name, told me that he cheated on his wife and had 3 children with 3 different lovers. As the priest ended his remarks, the mayor finally arrived and started his speech. I had the honor of being the first person to confess to Father Anderson years ago. Well, you know, though, I don't remember who was the first person that came to my office, but I do remember our dialogues, and every bar mitzvah, and wedding, and funeral, and shiva house, and hospital visits and classes. I am who I am because you are who you are. Which brings me to my last anniversary. 2 90-year-old guys, Moshe and Isaac, had been friends all over their lives. When it was clear that Isaac was dying, Moshe visited him every day. One day Moshe said, Isaac, we have been friends for 70 years and we share a passion for baseball. Please do me one favor, when you get to heaven, somehow let me know if there is baseball there. So Isaac looked at Moshe from his deathbed and said, you have been my best friend for many years. If it's possible, I do this for you. So shortly after that, Isaac passed on. A few days later, Moshe was awakened from a deep sleep by a flash of white light and a voice calling out to him, Moshe, Moshe. So who is this? Asked Moshe, sitting up suddenly. Isaac said, it's me, Isaac. Where are you? I am in heaven, replied Isaac. I have some really good and bad news. So tell me the good news first, said Moshe. So the good news is that there is baseball in heaven. And the bad news, you are pitching Tuesday. So you know what? I hope I am not pitching tomorrow, because tomorrow is my 60th birthday. I am now too old to die young. I'm even too old for a midlife crisis. I can say I feel old, but I am acutely aware that no one looks at me anymore in terms of potential. Being 60 years old is having respect for mirrors because they don't lie. And they will never lie again. Being 60 years old is finally knowing who your real friends are and having earned the enormous privilege of not pretending anymore in front of others. It is knowing how to say no when you mean no. It's getting to know yourself thoroughly and being able, finally, to dialogue with your body. Being 60 years old is conversing with loneliness and never feeling alone with it. Being 60 years old is no longer asking anyone for permission to fulfill an old dream. To see 60 years old is to be amazed at what you have achieved with your sons and daughters who are already in the 20 and 30. Finally inaugurate new perspective, new dialogues with that feeling of detachment and lightness in front of them. When we are young, we think that we can bend the world to our will. If we don't like something, we will just change it. If a goal seems hard, we will simply plow through, flattening any obstacle in our way. It takes years to accept that some things in life are immune to my will. That no matter how hard I try, no matter how hard I work, no matter how much I want something, some things are beyond my will. To be 60 years old is to understand the mystery of life and begin to confront death without fear or sadness, because it's there looming timidly but inexorably. Being 60 years old is starting to say goodbye too early, always too early, to good friends. I learned that you may have many accomplishments, but can lose everything you built over years in mere seconds. I learned that at home, but it was confirmed in front of 17 million people at the Oscars when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock and then went on a rant, all in real time. If it were just a celebrity thing, a famous actor slapping the face of a famous comedian, it would have just been another headline. But it's not just a celebrity thing. It's a very much human thing. This is the hard truth of life. It may not be fair, but we are not judged on our best moments. We are judged on our worst moments. In fact, our worst moments can and do cannibalize our best moments. Years of good living can be undone by our worst time. Did I just say time? No, I meant seconds. Will Smith slap and rant lasted seconds, but those seconds overshadow a 20 years career. Seconds cannibalize years. Our worst seconds cannibalize our best years. A few bad seconds have disproportional power. But the opposite is also true. A few good seconds can also have disproportional power. We want to seek out the few good seconds where we can truly change ours and somebody else's life for the better. This sermon is coming to an end. But before it does, this is my blessing. I hope you will remember throughout this year that while you might not have everything, while you can't do everything, and while you won't ever know everything, everything you do know can do and can have are your real blessing. Please remember this year that the most important things you have in life are your relationship. So never compromise your soul and instead be with people for love. Be a proud Jew and experience your faith as if our future depends on you. Enjoy your passion. And if you did not find it yet, look for it. Do not stop until you find it. So when life tells us that our time to pitch in heaven has arrived, you will be able to confidently say to yourself and those you love that you live a life worth living. A life with some seconds we would want to erase, but with even more years of anniversaries full of purpose, learning, joy, love, and good health. May you all be inscribed in the book of life. Shana Tova Umetuka.